Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to another episode of Cities Skylines. And here we are at the medical complex that we built on stream the other day. And thank you to all of you who joined in for that stream because it was absolutely hilarious. I have watched some of it back to see what I was missing in the chat and all the flood jokes, the plague jokes, the mods having a fair jokes. It was absolutely hilarious. So thank you guys so much, and thank you for all of the input that went into building this medical complex as well. The introduction of some of the trade school assets, our little COVID testing area that we did here with the little tents with the tables underneath, and some of the old prehistoric wooden tables that we joked about they would use during the plague. I think it turned out quite nicely. A little bit of fusing going on here to build out the main hospital to make it look like a couple of wings on the side. The car parks, a couple of little park detailing, little areas for people to go and chill in, and of course we have the flood memorial fountain here. So for those of you who have not caught the stream, we had a massive flood. I accidentally put in a water spawn point halfway through the stream, on full blast as well, and it pretty much flooded most of the downtown of Auridon, destroyed our hospital complex halfway through the build, but we rebuilt it and I think it turned out pretty well. Got these little raised walkways as well going inside the buildings here with a little bit of, well, a trailer end and a trolley shelter to use as detailing there, which I think works quite well in that instance. And yeah, really like how it turned out. The little metro station in the roundabout at the front, the ambulance props. Yeah, I think it came together really nicely actually. And we still have this area over here, which I am actually going to leave for future streams. There was a really great suggestion in the chat to put some more hotels and some restaurants, that sort of thing, the other side of it. So we will come on and do that in the next live stream. And hopefully it will be just as fun as this one was, because I had an absolute blast. So there we have it, and we did name it the General Teaching Hospital after my new mod, Jen. Thank you so much for being a mod, Jen. And I hope you like the hospital. We do have the yellow daffodils in as well for Jen there. She loves yellow, and of course the roadies as well. She also loves roadies. So I think, yeah, it came together really nicely. And one thing that you may have noticed on that stream, if you did watch it, is we had a little bit of train traffic going on. And there's still an awful lot of trains coming into this station. But that is what I want to concentrate today's episode on, is fixing up our train lines. And in particular, there is one area that I really want to focus on today, which is this intersection here. We have not split off cargo trains, we have not split off intercity trains, the passenger trains, we've not split off the internal trains. So all of that needs to happen today to keep our train line running super efficiently. And this junction as well, the trains all cross over each other. So that's what I want to eliminate today by putting in a massive Y intersection for two lines of trains, for the one for the intercity passenger trains and one for the cargo trains into here. So that is going to be the focus for today. And the other thing is to split off the internal trains, of course, and I actually want to extend out our internal train line and bring in another stop all the way over here on the other side of the city in the Iron Grandpa district. So that is actually going to be the first thing that we tackle today, is splitting off those internal train lines, and then we will come back to this massive junction later on. So you can see already that we have got train traffic backing up out of the city here, and part of the problem is that we've got intercity trains coming in via this line, even though they're not actually stopping at this station anymore, travelling through this and going on into the downtown via here, which I want to stop. I want them to come in on this line and travel in on the intercity train line rather than doing that. So first things first, we are going to stop them from doing that by breaking off this connection here. So we're just going to trim this rail line all the way back and remove these temporary connections we put in quite a while back to eliminate those trains from doing that. And yeah, some of them are going to despawn because they're going to freak out and have absolutely nowhere to go. But that's absolutely fine. So now, as mentioned, with this train line, what I do want to do is bring in an extension to it. Bring it all the way round past Bill Watts Power Station, past Auridon and into the Iron Grandpa district. Now we're going to have to do a little bit of a rework here in order to fit the train station in. Now this is the one area where we're actually zoned in Auridon. It is the only area with zoning in and not plopped buildings. So I am just going to go ahead and remove some of these houses around here because the noise pollution when we put in the train station is going to be too much for them to cope with. So we'll just get rid of a load of these houses and then I'll be right back. Okay, so now we have cleared out that area, let's have a little think about the train station that we're going to put in. And I would like to, because this is essentially an end-of-line train station, we might bring the line on further out if we have more infrastructure this side, potentially loop it all the way around if we have another town out this side as well. We'll see what's to come in future plans, but for now it's pretty much an end of station line. So I'm thinking one of the content creator pack train stations will do nicely here. And that's actually this Ground Island platform train station. It has that nice kind of almost Green Cities look to it, which I quite like for here. So I think it will go, Okie Dokie Wildlife Park has reached level 5. Excellent news. So I think this one will go quite nicely with the old European suburbia housing that we have around here. However, I do just want to break this off this main road, shift it back ever so slightly so it's more aligned with the main road there. And then what we will do is, of course, replace this road here. And we'll just bring that down to ground level and bring that straight across there. Let's just use Move It to make sure that that is nicely aligned. Now, to get our train line in here, we're going to have quite a looping line coming round from the other side here. I'm just going to use the bog standard train lines for this. And what we are going to do here, which may take some people, I know, by a bit of surprise, but this road really is not busy at all. In fact, the only place that it really goes is down to this end of Iron Grandpa District here. So we are actually going to do a level crossing here. So I'm just going to bring it out like that and carry it on over the other side. We'll go to freeform for this. Get our angle in nicely and then bring it in reasonably close to Auridon and down this side of the park here. Now we are going to force this one underground because this is actually a main collector that's attached to the highway here. So this road is likely to be a bit busier. So I definitely don't want a level crossing on this road. So we're going to bring this one down and underneath that main collector here. We're going to force it down to ground level and create a bridge as we go underneath, because I think it's just nicer that we can see the trains rather than putting in a tunnel here. So let's just grab this road and we will upgrade it to an elevated section so that it bridges over. And I'm just going to shift some of these nodes up a little bit so that bridge is more closely aligned to where the rail track goes underneath. Then we do need to just have a little sense check of height here, and that is not low enough. So let's just bring that down and make sure that the rail line is clearing that bridge. Got a tiny bit of room to play with, so I think that will be absolutely fine. And then what I will do is use Network Multi-Tool here, and we'll use the slope function to get from this node back up to ground level really nice and not steeply. So we've got a 2.5% gradient there, which I think is absolutely fine for a train. And now I am actually going to continue to bring it as forced down into the ground like this so that we can cross back over this collector here. So we'll just sweep it up alongside it and then we'll cross over around about here. And then similarly with this main connection here, we're just going to keep it forced to the underground for the time being. And I'm going to bring this section out straight actually so it goes a little bit nicer there. We'll change those roads in a second. And then what we want to do is make a nice connection up to this line. So we'll just bring it in like that, which is a reasonably gentle curve there. And again, we do want to use multi-network tool where I brought it up to the surface here to do a nice gentle slope. We'll do that again. Again, a 2.1% gradient I think is absolutely fine there. And then let's make sure that these roads are bridges. And I think what we will do here is actually just remove that node there, and then we can adjust these ever so slightly so that we get just the bridge elevated section over the railway like so. We'll just collect clearance there, and yeah, the wires are not crossing through the bottom of that bridge, so that's absolutely fine. And same goes for over here, so all of that is good. Now there is a bit of detailing to be done along that sunken rail line there. I think what I will do is actually smooth a lot of it out. So we'll just grab the terrain tools here with the smooth option. We'll make the brush size pretty big, and then we'll just kind of smooth it out along some of these edges, making it slightly more cliffed as it comes up to the roads like that. And particularly out this side, we'll just smooth all of this out, which gives us a slightly nicer transition down into those sections. So if we get off the terrain modifications, you can see here, much smoother in the banking, so it feels a little bit more natural there, and it's less obvious that it's sunken the whole way through. Then importantly, we'll extend our internal train line, which at the moment comes straight from downtown out to this station here. We'll just pick up that stop and move it all the way over to this station here. just like so, and then we'll come back here and make sure that we've added in some additional stops into this station so that we definitely stop here on the way back. Now this does give us opportunities to add in more stations as we build out into these areas here, which I think will be a little bit more industry, so that'll be helpful for getting people from here out to the jobs out in these locations and from around this area as well. But for now, that will do. And now the next thing that I do want to do is we've got our other bus line over here. So we are going to create a raised walkway to get people straight from the station down to the bus stop over here, rather than actually moving the bus stop right out that side of the station. I think this gives us a nice little walking opportunity, and it's not too far away, so people should still walk this distance without any kerfuffle. So what we will do is use the trade school path, and I've raised it up to a height of 6, and what I want is it for it to come out equally to that road there. So we're going to cross over at a slightly odd angle here, just like that, and then we'll bring it back down to the ground here and connect it up to the road so that people can get down and through to that bus stop there. Now if this does become super busy, we could turn this into a Park Life Cheese, because we have got this section of non-raised path there. And then similarly this side, let's just bring it back down to the ground here, and then we will connect it up to a normal pavement path, which I'm just going to run across the end like so here. We'll then connect this one into it, and I think we will again use the normal pavement path here just to connect that in nicely. And let's just shift that node up so it's right in front of that tree, and we get a slightly less steep slope in this side. So I think this one will work quite nicely. I'm actually just going to test out the Liberal Arts College path, because yeah, that's got the sort of ready look to it, which actually I think is a little bit nicer for this bridge here. A little bit more natural with the European suburbia housing around it. And already we've got people going into the station, which is good news there. Now right next to the station, there is actually another unique asset that I'd like to add in here. So I'm just going to break away this road just for a moment. Just notice that tree right in the middle of the path there as well. And one that we haven't put in actually yet is the hypermarket. So let's place that in. And then I am just going to adjust this up so it is slightly further away. So I think what we will do is place it in like that. I'm then going to grab this road and redraw in this connection. So I think what we will do here is just bring this out in a nice curve to connect up to the road at a slightly shallower angle to what it was before. And then what we can do is add in an entrance road just about here. And I've just noticed there is a slight dip in the ground here, so let's just make sure that things are level before we start. So we'll bring out a road like so, and then what I am actually going to do is convert this into a 1-unit industrial road to go round back of this hypermarket, so that we've got access for the commercial vehicles as they come around to this side. And then what I will do is convert that into a pavement road so that then we can build out quite a nice yard behind it here, where we can put in some props and the such like for the deliveries and create a bit of a delivery yard out back here. And then equally this side again, I'm going to use the pavement road to bring out a section just like that, which takes people into the car park. And let's actually just upgrade this end to a segment so it's not quite as wide there, so it doesn't cut into the car park. And then next to that, we can use one of our car park props that we haven't used for a little while in Auridon, which is just this very basic car park prop, which acts as a park, but people do still park in it, which is quite nice. But the reason why I'm not using parking lot roads here is because I want car parking spaces that are a similar vibe to what we have in the hypermarket there already. So I am choosing to use these in this instance instead. And then what we will do actually is bring out some of these shopping cart shelters into the middle here again, just so it looks like it is consistent with this side of the car park. We'll just plop one in there and then also one down this end as well. And actually what I will do here is just pull these over ever so slightly, and we'll move this road down a little bit so we've got slightly more room to play with there. And then we can just pull these over ever so slightly so we've got a little bit more room for this one at this end. So I think just like that will do nicely, and obviously lots of detail to be had in around here to flesh out this car park and make it look like one complex in front of the hypermarket there. I think actually what we will do is just very quickly bob off this sign. So it's the billboard pylon that we are removing there. And then what I'm actually going to do is just extend this pavement path up this side so that we can add in a few more of these car parks and just extend out this area. And so there we go, so we just added in a few more car parks, and I have actually put in a little shell garage down this end as well, which I think we can integrate quite nicely into this complex. So now one thing I do want to do is not miss that big billboard, so we are going to find it in Find It, and we are of course going to put a couple of these on these corners so that people know that there is a big old supermarket here, and so that we're not losing that signage, because I quite like this sign. It's quite an impressive one actually. It's one of the better looking ones in the game. I think we'll remove this one just there and just have it at the entrance and on the main collector right there. So what that leaves us with is actually a bit of detailing around this area. And just before I do that, I do definitely want to extend over this walking path as well to make sure that people can come right from the station and get into the supermarket this way. So let's just bring out that pavement path here. And again, they can walk over from the bus stop over this bridge and down into the supermarket that way as well. And what we might actually do instead of that is bring down our raised walking pathway down the other side as well, so that we can have a kind of two-pronged approach to this. So let's just bring that back down to the ground here, and we'll connect it up there. And that's relatively equal either side, so kind of happy with that. We'll just shift this over ever so slightly. I think that is a little bit better there. So we've got lots of access either from the station or from the buses through to the main hypermarket here. So yeah, that does just leave us with a bit of detailing around this area. So I will jump into a detailing time lapse and be right back. So there we go. So round the hypermarket we have just put in a few little benches, a lot of surface painter, actually put in some little trolleys in amongst these shopping cart trolley shelters, and added in paths and just trees around the edge, a little bit of fencing to frame off the edge of the car park there, just this little wall asset that we've got off the workshop. And then round the back added in a little storage yard, delivery yard, with a few containers, a couple of lorry ends, little bin area and some crates. Fairly simple. And then round the station, not too much really, just a little bit of fencing, detailing and some more woodland to frame off the station there. Again, a little bit of surface paint here and there. And then we've just added in a park to this area. So again, taking the regular vanilla playground and extending it out with a few other props and assets just to make it into a more interesting area for people to enjoy. But there we have it. So there is our new suburban train station in the Iron Grandpa district. So now we are going to move on to sorting out this intersection, and the first thing that I do need to do is split out the cargo lines from the passenger train intercity lines, as one of our buildings burns down over there in Auridon. So in order to do that, what I am going to do is just start by splitting it here. So this one goes on as a passenger line into the downtown, and we just want to split out this cargo line here so that we've got two lines running next to each other. So I am just very simply, I'm going to pause the game for this so we don't screw up the trains too badly. But I am just very simply going to delete this line, and we forced it to underground rather than actually terraforming. So what I will do is just adjust this one over ever so slightly, just to make that curve slightly less severe. So we'll just put it in like that. We'll use Alt to snap it to make sure that angle is appropriate as it comes out of the warehouse there. And of course we do need to also adjust this fence here as well. There we go, so that looks a little bit neater there. And then let's grab our train lines, the ones that we're using without the overhead wires on them. And we're just going to bring out the passenger line like so, making sure that we're still forcing it to the ground there. And we'll bring it out alongside this existing rail here. And we just want to make sure that that is obviously at the same level that it is on the other side there. And then what we'll do is just join up very simply our cargo line, or what will be our cargo line, like so. Now let's just move it and adjust this ever so slightly. So I want to make sure that this node here is the same height as this piece of track. And it probably could just be a little bit lower there, just to make sure that we are getting under that bridge suitably. So that looks absolutely fine. And then what I will do here actually is just adjust this line up so that they are coming out right next to each other. Now with this bridge, what we can actually do here is lower this down a little bit, because I am going to force these down into the ground just slightly further than they have been, so that we get a little bit more leeway and a little bit more room to play with there. Now I am going to go through and delete this intersection. And then what we need to do is at the edges of the map, split out the lines so that we've got two coming in from the edge here, one for the cargo and one for the intercity passengers. So let's just again grab our train track without the catenary lines there. And then right from this node, what we are going to do is just bring off an offshoot like that. And then I am going to use Network Multi-Tool with the parallel mode function. And we are just going to scoot all the way along this railway track to create a parallel line to it, nice and close, so that we're following the same pattern as the one that already exists. And I'm just going to give that a very, very slight offset, just so there is a slight degree of separation between the two, like so. Let's turn back on collision, and then we can hit enter to put that in. Now we do just need to check some of the raised segments here. So what we want to do is upgrade this to a bridge segment so that it mirrors the other side of it. So just like that. And then let's check if there are any other areas. Yeah, so there's another bridge segment here, which again, we can upgrade this side of it like so. And then again, going over the river here as well. And let's turn off collision so we don't get rid of those lovely rocks. So there we have our two train lines coming in, and I am going to trim this back a little bit so that we've got more space to do our massive train intersection here. And likewise, similarly with this side, let's trim this right back to about that point. This is going to be a really rather large junction. Of course, we do want to make sure that this is connected up this end as well. So let's just go ahead and join up this connection here. Now this is very rudimentary at the moment, and ideally I'd like them to not cross over. So I think what I will do here is actually just trim back this connection ever so slightly, and just to about there, so we've got enough room to play with. And then what I'm going to do is use the one-way track so that these trains are not crossing over each other at this junction here. So we're going to pull out the one-way track here, and we're just going to, in fact, we'll send it out a little bit further so we've got more breathing room to bring the other direction over to join up onto this track here. But that will do for now. Of course, we've got collision off, so let's go ahead and clear out those trees from the track there. And then similarly with the other side, and we probably haven't left actually even enough room here, so let's actually just go ahead and trim this back further because we need to bring it underground and then back up to the surface, so we definitely need enough breathing room in order to do that nice and smoothly. So what we will do here is then bring out the other direction. Let's turn off bending so that we get a nice smooth connection here. So we'll bring this out straight just a little bit, and then we are going to send it down underneath the other track. So I'll bring it down by about a height of 10, and we'll just follow this along. I'm probably going to have to pull this out further there because we're getting nasty tearing up next to the track. So let's just adjust this over a little bit. And then what we will do is cross underneath like so, and then loop it back round up to the surface here. Now again, we can use Network Multi-Tool and the slope function here to tidy this all up. So let's take these two points here, and we've got a nice 3.7 degree slope, which I think is okay there. I think that would be acceptable. That is a 7% slope, which is probably a bit too much. So let's just redo that. And 5% grade, I think, is probably okay there. It doesn't look too steep, so I think we'll get away with that. And then what we'll do is upgrade this to another bridge section going over here, and we can just adjust these nodes to tidy this up so it's slightly closer to the track and more even over the track there. Now that is a fairly tight turn, but I think it is smooth enough that the trains would go round nicely, but again we can check that when we come to it. So now the final thing with this is then to use Traffic Manager. So we can use the vehicle restrictions to say no cargo trains can go up this track, and similarly here would say no cargo trains coming back in that direction, and then here we will say no passenger trains, so it's only cargo going straight on there. So that should work okay. We might get a bit of crossover here because they like to use both sides of the track this side, but hopefully that will work nicely. So what I'll do is go ahead and do exactly the same thing with this piece of track coming in here, and then I'll be right back. We want to start constructing our Y interchange. Well, our double Y interchange, should I say? Two on top of each other. So what we're going to do is actually start by just joining up these pieces of track here very simply. So we'll bring this one out to connect up to this side. Try and get really smooth connections in all of this. So using the freeform tool function correctly will help with that. Then we can just straighten up some of these nodes using Move It to make perfect smooth connections there. And then what I would like to do again with this side of the track is use Network Multi-Tool with the slope function just to give a really smooth slope up. And I think actually we will go even further with this one. We'll go like that. So we've got a nice gentle slope coming up to the surface there. And then exactly the same with the other side. So we are going to leave a little bit of room for this, so we've got space in between these tracks for bringing out some of our connections. So I'll bring it out about here, and then we will start to curve it back nicely into this piece of track there. And again, let's use a Network Multi-Tool to get a really, really smooth slope on this. In fact, what I am going to do this side is actually bring up these nodes to the surface level, because we need to have tracks running all the way underneath each other, on top of each other here. So making sure that we've got this one at terrain height with this one slightly lower, I think is important here. So then again, we'll just use slope function to tidy this up to this point. Nice gentle slope coming up there. So next what we will do is, keeping the passenger line at ground level, we'll bring in some connections from the passenger line over here. So I'm just going to do a very, very smooth transition in. So we'll grab the one-way track here, and we will start to bring this one up and curve it in to join this track this way, so that we've got a connection coming from this direction onto this side of the track. And then similarly from over here, we'll grab a connection out about there, and we'll just follow this one round a little bit further, and then bring in a nice swooping curve like so, to then join up onto this same piece of track over here. And I think that's joined at a slightly different node, so let's just correct that. Now we're going to have to use a bit of Move It to smooth all of this out, and we're definitely going to use some node controller on these junctions just to make sure that they are all aligned and nice. So that's our first connections in for our passenger train, so that means that people can get on and off from this direction. However, we do also need people from this direction to come onto this side, so that is where we are going to have to go up and over a little bit. So again, locking into this same node here, what we'll do is bring out a one-way track like so, and we're just going to very closely follow it to this one, but start to raise it up. So if we bring this up by a height of 9, that should give us plenty of clearance for the trains going past, and we'll smooth this out with Network Multi-Tool. So what we want to do here again is just follow this track right nice and smoothly round, and then we are going to bring this over. Again, using the freeform tool gives us really nice curves with this, so that is the optimal way to do that. And we'll bring it in down to connect it up to this node here. In fact, I think what we will actually do here is give ourselves just a little bit more breathing room to get a nice smooth slope in there. So let's just bring that back ever so slightly, and we'll redo this line. Again, when you're doing these junctions, don't be afraid to just delete a section and redo it if it's not turning out exactly how you planned. So then again, we will try again with our incoming segment, and we'll just bring it down and in round about there. And again, lots of node controller to be used on these junctions here. We can shift back these nodes here to give ourselves more breathing room so that they connect up nice and smoothly. And we can also shift this out a little bit as well, again, just to give ourselves a little bit of breathing room in that junction. So that gives us a nice smooth connection there. And then let's use Network Multi-Tool just to slope these really nicely here. So we've got some really nice gentle slopes going up and over, plenty of clearance for the trains there, and it comes all the way over the track and then in this side. So again, what we're aiming for here is absolutely no trains crossing over each other. So we don't want to see tracks crossing here. We want one-way tracks coming in and out so that there is no collision of the train traffic that way. Now for the other side, what we will do is force this one to ground, and we're going to bring this one underneath from this connection. So we want one coming up from this direction here, and coming down and underneath. So we can actually move this slightly further back to where the train line is a little bit lower, and we'll have it splitting off here. And again, we'll just make sure that we are staying down a nice distance here and coming under the tracks exactly how we like it. So I'm going to follow this one round quite closely so that we keep some nice smooth patterns here. But we want to leave enough distance to make sure that the terrain isn't looking super duper odd and weird from that respect. And then what we'll do here is bring this up to connect into this junction here just before it hits this major node there. And then again, a bit of Network Multi-Tool to smooth out these slopes. There we go, we've got some nice smooth connections there. And again, there's a couple of segments of track that we just need to upgrade to bridge, and we can make sure there's enough clearance, which there is there, for the trains to run underneath. So that is actually our passenger line, Y interchange, hooked up there. A little bit rough, but what we will do is tidy it up with a bit of node controller and a little bit of Move It afterwards to make sure that everything is smooth and flowing nicely. So now what we need to do is essentially exactly the same thing for the cargo trains on the other side. So we will start by bringing out this connection here. So now this one is going to end up having to be raised a little bit. So we don't want to bring this too close to that, but we do want to nicely mirror it so that our patterns look super duper neat. And I have not brought this down. This one needs to go underneath that other track. So let's just go back and sort that out. So we'll go down by a distance of 9 again and bring this out nice and straight underneath this track. Again, we'll upgrade that to bridge in just a second. We will keep going in this direction. And in fact, we can lock this to straight here. And then we will go back to freeform tool to bring this nicely underneath here and connect it into our cargo track right there. Again, a bit of Network Multi-Tool needed to slope that out. So that's the first connection in there. And what we will do actually for the other direction again is use the parallel network function here to mirror part of this piece of track that we've just put in. So we will go all the way back up actually to this segment here. On this side of the track, again, we'll just give this a slight gap here, just like so. Hit enter there, so we get our parallel segment tool, and we'll obviously want to make sure that it's going in the right direction, which it is, thankfully. And then we can just hook this up into this node. And then what we'll do with this side is we will continue to bring this on out this way, curve it round like this, and then loop it back in to meet up with the cargo line this side. Now we can see here that this connection has not been made because you can see that the tracks are not merging into each other there. So what we do need to do is a little bit of move it here to straighten out some of these junctions. And that is coming in the wrong way. Yes, so we do need to flip that around from this point here and just make sure we got our directions right, and then those tracks should not cross over exactly like that. And there's a few more segments that we'll need to upgrade to bridge, but we'll come through and tidy that up once we've got all those connections in. So now we have got a connection from here up to this direction, and then we just need to hook in this direction up to this direction as well. So to start off with, what we will do here is grab our trains coming in from this side, and we'll just bring this down again. We'll bring that out straight like that, and then we'll bring it down by a step of 9 meters. And the slopes will be all tidied up with Network Multi-Tool in just a second. And then we'll just bring this round in a really nice smooth curve like so. And we can just bring this into this track at a slightly earlier point, so it's not all heading into the same node up there, as we are running out of space quite rapidly. So let's just get our Network Multi-Tool, and we'll use some slope function on these pieces of track just to make this all smooth and perfect. And then the final direction that we need to do is one incoming from this way to this side. Now this is going to be slightly more complicated to do because we are going to have to go up and over this entire intersection so far. So what I will do is actually bring it out of this same junction here. We'll turn road bending off here for a second and snapping, just so we get this out nice and smoothly. And we'll turn off snapping to nodes because we are quite close to some of the other segments here. We will actually force to ground just for the first segment here, and then we will move to a raised section. So then we will make sure that we've got snapping to angles on here, and we're going to bring out a really nice smooth curve all the way over the top like so. And then what we can do here is start to loop it back down to ground level. We'll bring it back down like that. We'll hit home to get it back to ground, and again Network Multi-Tool will be needed here to smooth this all out. And then we will bring it back into the track at quite a distance there so that we get a really nice smooth slope on this. So this end section here, I'm going to just upgrade that so it's forced to ground, and we can see that that has connected correctly. And then we'll use Network Multi-Tool with the slope function again to slope this all out. Now the highest point that it needs to be is here, and I can see actually that I have not raised this up high enough. So let's just raise that up so that we've got clearance for the trains coming underneath it here. We may need to add in a few pillars, do a bit of copying and pasting with pillars to make this feel more realistic here as well. I think that that should be plenty, but again, we can let the trains run and then we can adjust it. So let's get our slope tool, and we'll go from this point all the way back down to here to give ourselves a nice smooth slope, and a 2.9% grade is absolutely fine for that. And then similarly, we will go from this point here, and we'll do that all the way down to there to again get a nice smooth curve. So that should give us enough clearance over all of the lines there. So yeah, it's very busy. It's very busy, but it doesn't look too bad. So what I am going to do now is go through and make sure all of our bridge sections that need to be upgraded are upgraded. And then we will do a little bit of node controller on the end just to smooth out some of those connections there. Okay, so we have all our bridges in as necessary. So now there is a few of these pillars that we do need to move just to make this slightly more realistic. So I'm just going to move some of these over just a little bit so they're not blocking any tracks or anything like that. And I've just noticed actually that probably is enough clearance. We're going to have to do a little bit of checking once the trains come through to make sure. But we should be okay on all of these lines, I think. Another pillar over the line here. So let's, again, just shift that back just ever so slightly so that it's not crossing that train line there. And I think actually we're okay with that supporting pillar there, that we don't necessarily need another one. We could copy it and add in another one just about here. Yeah, in fact, I think we will. I think that helps to make that just slightly more realistic, and the support of the really high raised train line there. And then there are a couple of just very slightly janky bits, which I would like to smooth out just a little bit to make this look just ever so slightly neater. Okay, so let's now concentrate on the node controller and tidying up some of these junctions. So here, for instance, we can use node controller, and if we just offset all of these, it just brings it out really nicely there, just to give a little bit more breathing room to all of these tracks. And similarly here, we'll do exactly the same thing. So we'll just offset all of these nodes ever so slightly. And this blue one, I'm actually just going to shift it over ever so slightly as well, so that we've got a little bit more space there. And similarly, the green one could actually come back the other way just to straighten that out and make that a little bit neater. Looking at the junctions here again, I think we will just use a little bit of offset here to make that curve smoother. And similarly, exactly the same this side as well. We'll just get a nice smooth bend coming out of those junctions there. And then we'll do exactly the same on these junctions. Okay, so there we have our rather complicated train intersection. So let's just test it by pressing play and seeing where we get to. So I'll let this run just for a moment and let some trains come through. Okay, so it all appears to be working really quite smoothly, and we've got trains going in all directions. They are clearing underneath the bridges, which is great to see. And here again is a prime example of where we haven't got trains crossing over. They're just nicely keeping on their side of the track, merging with each other and going about their business. So I think overall that is definitely going to help us. We should not get any train backups here because we have got no train lines crossing over each other at all in this entire junction. Cargo is separated from passenger lines, so it should, in theory, all work smoothly. So now the final thing that I did want to do today is just have a quick check of our other public transport lines. We are actually pretty well covered. I've not been too bad at putting in new bus lines or extending tram lines where we've added in areas. So we're pretty well covered from that respect. We may need to have a complete overhaul of bus lines at some point, potentially tram lines as well. But I think for now it's not really needed as there are a lot of coverage here. We've got 3,000 residents, 1,600 tourists using the public transport every week. So it's not going too bad. But what I do want to do is just have a quick check of vehicles and number of vehicles online, the type of vehicles, particularly for the buses. Have we got big enough buses to transport all of the people that want to take them? And one thing that I've immediately noticed here is we've got 0 per week on our monorail, which just can't be right. We have vehicles on it, we have stops, and we have a lot of people waiting, and I can immediately see what the problem is here, and there's something broken. So let's just travel along this line and have a little... And... yeah, I can see the culprit there already. We've got a monorail sort of come off the tracks for some bizarre reason here. So let's just go ahead and delete that one out, and hopefully these guys should all get moving again. Okay, so we should find that people are now using our monorail line. We'll check back to that in a second. But let's start by having a little look at the bus lines here. So bus line 1, and we haven't actually given any of them any names. So bus line 1 is a long one which comes all the way from Iron Grandpa district all the way up into Prepare to Market and the bus station there. So we will call this Iron Grandpa, Iron Grampy to Prepare to Market. And let's just have a little check of vehicles here. Okay, we've got 500 people waiting at Prepare to Market bus station here. Not that many people on the rest of the line, but actually a lot of the buses are full. So what I am going to do here is upgrade it to a slightly higher capacity bus. And I do have the Volvo double-decker bus, which is slightly nicer than just using the airport one or the London City one, which probably doesn't really go in Auridon. So I think we will use that, and that has a capacity of 50 if I am correct in thinking that, which should help to clear some of that. And we're also at only 69% of the vehicle, so I think again we can raise this back up for this as it's quite a busy line. We'll add a few more vehicles in there and that should help clear some of that traffic. So going on to bus line 2, this is the bus line, let's get our colours back up. This is the bus line that runs up to the Bill Watts power station, and I believe it runs through to Prepare to Market again. Let's just check that. Yeah, we do have the green line going in there. And then let's just have a little check of capacity. And we've actually got way too many buses on this. There's not that many people using it. We do have 91 people there, actually. So again, maybe we keep it at 73% to help that clear a little bit. Which stop is that? So that is people down from Williams Point. wanting to get up towards Prepare to Market there. Interesting, because there's a tram that takes them that way as well. It's going on to bus line 3. So this is a very basic shuttle from Witchdog to Medical Centre through to Prepare to Market. But again, there is actually quite a lot of people waiting here, so I might actually just up the vehicle count on this slightly to 7. In fact, actually, for this one, no, what I am going to do instead is change this, because the roads around here are quite large. I'm going to change it to a bendy bus, which has a slightly higher capacity, and we'll move it back down to around 75%, so 6 vehicles. So bus line 4 comes into Prepare to Market as well. We've got a very busy bus station going on there. And it then travels all the way through Auridon up to Auridon. So that is Auridon to Prepare to Market. And again, there's quite a few people using that bus line. Auridon isn't served by much public transit, so let's just have a little check of how many people are waiting. And there are quite a few again here. So I think what I will do for this one again is change this to a bendy bus. And I may, I'll lower it down a little bit to just around 85%, a few vehicles left. As I don't think with the bendy bus, I think that will be more than plenty. There's not that many people on a lot of that line. So the blue line is the shuttle around Orifices and Solitude Port. And there are not very many people using that at all. And we are on 100% of vehicles, yeah, so we can massively dial this back down. So I think actually we'll take this all the way back down to about 60% of the vehicles, in fact. Four vehicles should be absolutely plenty for that. There's hardly anybody using that. Now, bus line 8, I believe, is the one in our downtown, which runs from Orifices here through to the ugly waterfront. We haven't even given it a name yet, so let's call that Orifices to Blunderdome for now. And again, there's not a huge amount of people using this, and there's an awful lot of vehicles on this line. So I'll keep this as a normal bus. And we're going to massively dial this back down again. So let's take this all the way back to, I think we'll do 65%, 7 vehicles. Should be absolutely fine for that. And then we do have Canal Line, which an awful lot of people are using. And let's just scan, yeah, we've got 200. So this definitely needs a high capacity bus. And I'm thinking, because it's the Canal District, I don't want to do a bendy bus here. There's some tight turns in that district. So let's go for the Volvo double-decker bus again. And it is on 100%, so I will leave that, and hopefully that will start to clear some of this, just being at a slightly higher capacity. I'm reluctant to take a bus line over 100%. I'm always bringing them down rather than raising them up, so I think that will do fine there. And then the final one is the Festival Park and Ride. And wow, there is a lot of people wanting to get to the festival. What stop is that? That's Pink Lady Park. Wow. I think if we go to a super bendy bus for this, I think that's at 100. Yeah, so that's what we're going to need to do here. I'm definitely going to keep that 100%. We need to keep an eye on that. We can't have 1,000 people waiting for a bus. And again, maybe this is a case that we do need to... I mean, they are literally all just going to the festival from there. They could just walk. But it might mean that we do need to add in some different public transport options for getting them from the Pink Lady interchange here out to the festival. So let's have a little look at that in the next episode and see how that is going after the change in vehicle. And then on to trams ever so quickly. So this is actually the Stanton Island circular. And I know there is hardly anyone using it, but it takes the opposite direction all the way around Stanton Island. So I do want to keep it because I think it is handy. We could lower the number of vehicles, yeah, so let's just have 3 vehicles on this rather than the full 4. And then let's have a look at some of our other lines. So Woodhaven line is super busy, and this is the one that runs all the way from from Oriole, in fact, actually all the way down to Stanton Island here. And there's not very many people waiting, actually, at any of these stops. So I think we are absolutely fine there. We're at 71% already, so I am going to leave that. Some of the trams are reasonably full, but not quite full. So I think that's okay. We could take off a couple of trams, but I'm going to leave it for now. We've then got Fair Trade line, which, yeah, runs from Fair Trade all the way through to Prepare to Market. And there's not too many people using this again, but some of those trams are reasonably busy, so I think I will leave that at 75%. And then we've got Monument Valley line. Again, a reasonable amount of people using this, although there are quite a lot of empty vehicles, actually, and there's no huge volumes waiting. So let's dial this down to... I think we'll take it down to 75% of the vehicle's capacity, and that will help to free up our roads a little bit because, yeah, the capacity is definitely not there for that. And then the final line, FewU line, which takes them all the way from Prepare to Market, actually right down into the downtown now. And yeah, I can see there are people on all of these trams. We don't have huge volumes waiting though, and it is at 100%. So I am going to again dial that down from 18 vehicles, I think, to 14. We'll be absolutely fine there. And that again will just help to free up our roads a little bit. So we have dropped clearly because I've deleted all of the buses from the lines, but these should start to pick up again, and we should find that that picks up. Certainly now that we've got the monorail actually working, that should be a bit better. But yeah, we're pretty well covered from public transport point of view, apart from around the downtown, and I can't really understand this. These buildings have got, I mean, this one has literally got a metro station right next to the front of it. Makes no sense to me. But we need to keep our eye on it, and this is definitely where the public transit system needs to improve and fill out, so that will be coming as we develop our downtown. So for this episode, all that leaves us with is a lot of detailing around these train lines here. So I will come on to that now. We're just going to add in, it's going to be very basic actually, we're just going to add in a few rocks, some more trees and greenery around the outside, maybe smooth out some of these cliffs where we can on the outside so that we haven't got quite such a severe landscape. Probably smooth out some of these rough terrain sections in the bottom so that we've got a full complete dip for all of our train lines running down underneath there. And yeah, that will pretty much be it. Maybe a little bit of fencing just to frame it off, but that will do nicely. So I will jump into a time lapse for that and be right back. And there we have it, our finished little major complicated rail intersection here. And I've just put in some very basic detailing, so a few rocks to kind of iron out some of these cliff edges. I have left some exposed because I don't think it looks too bad. A little bit of overgrowth here or there, lots of lights, quite a bit of this chain link fence as well, lining a few of the lines. Mainly on the outside and a couple of these internal lines as well, just to give it a little bit of a boundary and a little bit of a border there. I've kept some spaces quite open because I thought that was needed. Added in a couple of larger rock formations over here so that the rocks around the edges of the tracks don't look quite so strange. And then an awful lot of trees and undergrowth and the such like around it. I have also done a little bit of surface painter to put in a bit more ruined texture around some of these middle parts, but again, tried not to overdo it there, so it is relatively natural and relatively subtle. But that really was it. So it seems to be working really, really nicely with the cargo and the intercity passenger trains all separated there and all flowing, no one crossing each other. Seems to be working very smoothly at the moment, and I'm really quite enjoying just watching the trains move around this junction, if I'm completely honest. Quite a satisfying watch. So that is going to be it for today, and if you have enjoyed the episode, a like below is really appreciated. Drop me a comment and let me know any suggestions for any other public transport improvements as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.